deal with my audience. One statement that an audience member made was this: when someone has a nightmare, they often find it too difficult to describe in a way that completely captures the impact and power the dream had over you as a person. But through dance, they can express and convey emotions that they otherwise are unable to do. So then, out of the nightmare into the light. The image I wanted to create here was almost of feeling the light coming down. The stage had been very, very stark. The dancers transformed out of those white dresses for the women, black for the men, into, I asked my costume designer for Mary Mother of God blue. That's pretty specific if you have that reference in mind. And when this lid came off, I told her, you know, you've been stuck, well, by that time she had been stuck in there 3 minutes or more. But the images, I was experimenting with this in the studio, was the sense of barely being able to stretch your limbs out and feeling like you had to push against that lid. The shadow woman, as she lifts, this is the same woman that puts her in, slams the lid down, lifts the lid, and then she begins to just rotate with this lid. And the first manifestation of the dance, it's got concentric circles. So we have this image upon image, I think, of wholeness, you might say, a sense of coming into the center, while the victim becomes goddess. That's the imagery that unfolded. And so she's working, again, to kind of bring feeling back into what was numb. Because in the barrel, we have her very contained. And in the second manifestation of this dance, we made the barrel bigger so we could do more wonderful things up there without terrifying those who were a little anxious about height. But I also was really interested in creating moon imagery in the background so that the barrel lid, once it was lifted, had this sense of seeing the moon and echoing the moon, and she's holding the moon. So you kind of morph out of the shadow woman energy into kind of moon goddess energies where I was going. Because my dreams were really in that kind of extreme at the time of these wretched nightmares counterbalanced or compensated by these archetypal images. Then I realized I really wanted, in the second manifestation, to bring in the Minoan, the Cretan snake goddess. And this first showed up in 2002, the first time I created a dream dance. And many of you have seen that image of she who holds a snake in both hands, and she's holding this space between that energy. Because, of course, the snake, you could get Freudian on me, but that's your choice, of course. But what I was going for was this transformation that, like the women stuck in these miserable places, they had to break through, they had to shed their skin so that they could continue to evolve and change. And so in the third section, coming into wholeness, that's where the energy was going. And this third time around, I felt like I had a lot more energy for this. One of the things that came up in talking to dancers who in my company are also choreographers, because that's a big focus in the dance minor program is choreography. We talked about this issue of presenting anxiety-provoking images in dance, and one of the young women explained that by dancing in the dream dance, it required me as a dancer to take a deeper look into the meaning of choreography. Well, as a choreography teacher, I will tell you, yes! Yes, it's not just how cute can I look and how many fun steps can I do. It's like, what are you communicating? Then another piece here is I wanted to create images of he who was perpetrator, you know, this intimidating masculine energy, negative animus energy, into, initially in the transformation section, he really became a helpmate. And then finally, we were moving into more of a soul connection and imaginally integrating that masculine into the feminine and the feminine into words manifesting it outwardly. Greer, who was the victim in the barrel for the first 3 minutes of the original dance, wrote, "I realized what an outlet dance really is and the potential for expression outside of the written and oral that we are all so used to. In the nightmare, the audience was scared by the mere images without having to be told the specifics of the dreams themselves. The visualization of the dream was enough to communicate fear. This is the purpose of dance, to communicate without words, to speak through movement." So there's my 20-year-old giving back to me what I was hoping for, honestly. We had many opportunities to talk about what we're trying to create here, but of course the students are doing partnering, and what I'm asking is what's possible for you. Balancing on that barrel, which is over 3 feet high, and working with trust was a huge issue, as perhaps you can imagine, especially when the first third of the dance, these men were perpetrators. They were doing all kinds of wretched behavior. And once they got on stage, their faces were covered, so they couldn't even smile to each other off stage. This came through in the interview, this sense of, the women were afraid of the men off stage because they just looked so threatening, even though they knew them. Well, one of the young woman who played the ineffectual mother wrote, "Performing in a piece which is said about a nightmare was the most liberating experience I have had in my dancing career. To dance the piece allowed for control over the nightmare, which in turn liberated me from my fears of the nightmare." And so again and again, the students were reflecting back that even though it was scary, they were working through some of their own material, which certainly I did, as both the dreamer and the choreographer. Another one of my dancers in the dissertation dance talks about enhancing the relationship with the unconscious by embodying dream images. She's one of the 2 sisters there. She says, "My understanding of the story was more powerful and visceral, I believe, because I had physically danced the dream, rather than simply reading about it on paper. I had literally danced through the entirety of someone else's dream, a portion of her unconscious mind." Again, this image of, yes, we're trying to integrate masculine and feminine, but also images that came up, I felt, were a way of embodying the sense of individuation, of coming into wholeness in and of ourselves. And this young woman was she who was stuffed in the barrel for the first third of the dance. So for me, this was goddess imagery that we were working with. I would say, in my sense of this work, that what's most relevant to the depth psychological field is the way, the embodied manner that this depth material came through. The dreams, which are an intuitive function, are met by dance, which is a sensate function, and that it's this joining together of the intuitive and the sensate that offers a unique perspective. And it is the power of the unconscious as accessed through dreams, met by the somatic unconscious. That's a term that's now being used a good bit. This idea of our own bodies having an unconscious. And so my somatic unconscious is choreography, working with the dancers and their own somatic unconscious body forth these dream images. So, in conclusion, what I hope we do is invite our bodies into our research and help heal this duality that we've experienced now for many, many, many decades of thinking of mind, body as separate entities. And I'm hoping that all artists, all depth psychologists find a way to heal this connection with their body instead of having it something that they ignore and don't allow in the door. There is a relationship between the dream and the dance. This was my experience throughout. And it was the image of the dream that always was driving the dance. And in conclusion, I would say that I hope that the dream can be the intuitive guide, but that the body can be the sensate function that brings us down the road further in our research. So thank you very much for being here.
Beautiful. I'd like to ask Sandra to ask the first question, please.